The city hummed a familiar, tireless song around me, a symphony of traffic and distant sirens. From behind the wheel of my taxi, I, Mila, had become an involuntary chronicler of lives. Each passenger was a fleeting narrative, a whispered secret, a silent confession. My cab, often scenting faintly of forgotten coffee or the lingering perfume of a hurried traveler, was a small, contained universe where stories began and ended, sometimes leaving an imprint. I was 26, and the rhythm of the road was the most consistent thing in my life, a steady pulse against the backdrop of transient human connections. I found a quiet satisfaction in observing, in understanding the unspoken anxieties or subtle joys etched on faces in my rearview mirror. Most of the time, I remained detached, a silent witness. One late Tuesday afternoon, the passenger door opened to reveal a presence that immediately felt different. She stepped in, bringing with her a subtle chill that wasn't just from the autumn air. Her name, I would later learn, was Lily. She was also 26, though the delicate lines around her eyes suggested a depth beyond her years. Her dark, lustrous hair, a shade close to midnight, framed a face of arresting beauty. Her skin was fair, almost translucent, contrasting sharply with the deep, intelligent eyes that were a startling shade of hazel, currently clouded with a hint of distant melancholy. Even in the confined space of the cab, her posture was elegant, a quiet grace in the way she settled onto the seat. She wore an understated yet refined gray wool coat, its collar turned up slightly, and a soft, cream-colored scarf that almost perfectly matched the subtle tones of her skin. There was no excessive jewelry, just a delicate silver chain peeking from beneath her scarf. "To the gallery on Elm Street, please," she murmured, her voice a soft, low cadence, almost a whisper against the engine's drone. It held a certain melodic quality, even in its quietness. I met her gaze briefly in the rearview mirror. My usual attempt at polite conversation felt oddly clumsy, an intrusion. "Rough day," I ventured, a common opener. She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes, those deep, knowing hazel pools, drifted past my reflection to the passing streetscape. "Just a long one," she finally replied, her voice soft, devoid of any inflection, a carefully constructed barrier. There was no invitation for further inquiry. A quiet agreement settled between us. I respected her reserve, turning my attention back to the road. Yet, an inexplicable feeling had taken root within me. It wasn't merely the observation of a beautiful woman, something I encountered regularly. This was different. Her silence wasn't empty, it was laden, almost heavy, with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher, a profound sorrow beneath her composed exterior that starkly contrasted with her refined beauty. I felt an unusual pull, a nascent curiosity that stirred deeper than my usual detached interest in passengers. This was distinct, unsettling in its novelty. A subtle current, unseen and unheard, began to flow. My thoughts kept circling back to her eyes, the depth of their sadness, a stark, unexpected beauty in their quiet despair. The journey to Elm Street felt both too long and too short, leaving me with a lingering sense of intrigue long after she had quietly departed. Her presence had left an indelible mark, a quiet question that resonated within the confines of my cab. The city's cadence shifted with the turning days, yet a new, subtle regularity began to punctuate my shifts. Lily reappeared. Not every day, but often enough for her to become a familiar outline in my rearview mirror, a recurring thread in the tapestry of my routes. She would usually hail me from the same corner near the bustling financial district, around the same time each afternoon, always requesting passage to the art gallery on Elm Street. Our interactions remained brief, a quiet exchange of destination and fare, yet a delicate pattern of recognition began to emerge. Her dark hair, meticulously styled, might vary slightly, sometimes caught back in a low bun, other times falling softly around her shoulders, framing her elegant neck. Her wardrobe, always understated, spoke of a quiet sophistication, often featuring muted tones and classic silhouettes. I became a silent student of her moods. The fleeting expressions that crossed her face as she looked out the window told their own stories. Sometimes, a deep line would appear between her eyebrows, a hint of weariness. Other times, her gaze would soften, drifting over the urban landscape with a contemplative air, a moment of profound concentration. I noticed a brief, almost imperceptible sigh that occasionally escaped her, a soft release of unseen tension. Her elegant fingers would sometimes tap a silent rhythm against her leather handbag. These observations, gathered from the slight angle of my mirror, deepened my understanding without a single word being exchanged. I learned to anticipate her presence, a quiet hum of expectation settling within me as the clock neared her usual pickup time. The silence in the cab, initially a polite reserve, transformed. It became a comfortable space, a shared bubble of unspoken understanding between two strangers. Her occasional "thank you," delivered in that soft, low voice, began to carry a new, subtle warmth, a fleeting smile gracing her lips, barely there but undeniably present. It was a recognition, a quiet acknowledgement of the driver who understood the rhythm of her journey. I often wondered about her, about the world she inhabited within the hushed halls of that art gallery. What beauty did she seek? What sorrows did she carry? My curiosity, once a fleeting impulse, had deepened into a quiet fascination. Her presence, reserved yet profound, had become a subtle anchor in my otherwise transient days. I found myself looking forward to her quiet entrance, to the brief, shared journey that always ended too soon, leaving me with a sense of lingering mystery and an unexpected anticipation for her return. The city lights were a blur outside my window, reflecting in the rain-slicked streets. It was late, past my usual shift, when my phone chimed with a booking. The address that appeared on the screen made my breath catch. It was the same upscale apartment building where I often dropped Lily off. An unexpected prickle of concern ran through me. She never called for late-night rides. When I pulled up to the curb of the dimly lit bar listed as the pickup point, I spotted her immediately. She wasn't standing poised and collected as usual. Lily was leaning against a lamppost, her head bowed, her dark hair a little disheveled, strands escaping from what looked like a hastily secured bun. Her elegant gray coat, usually so immaculate, was askew, draped loosely over her shoulders. The subtle scent of stale alcohol reached me even before she opened the door. Her movements were clumsy, hesitant, as she fumbled with the handle. She finally managed to open the door and slide into the back seat, collapsing against the plush fabric with a soft moan. Her deep hazel eyes, usually so sharp and observant, were now clouded, unfocused, brimming with a distress that was raw and unconcealed. The careful composure I had come to associate with her was completely shattered. "Lily," I said, my voice softer than I intended, a question rather than a greeting. She blinked slowly, her gaze attempting to meet mine in the rearview mirror, but failing to quite connect. "Home," she mumbled, her voice thick, slurred, almost unrecognizable. She struggled to articulate her address, a vague wave of her hand the only direction she could offer. A surge of something akin to protective instinct washed over me. This was not the reserved, quiet woman I knew, but someone vulnerable and deeply in pain. "Don't worry," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the sudden anxiety I felt. "I know where you live." I bypassed the question of payment. It felt irrelevant. The drive was silent, punctuated only by the rhythmic swish of the wipers against the rain. My focus was split between the road and the rearview mirror, where Lily's figure remained slumped against the seat. I watched her, a knot forming in my stomach. Her usually delicate features were strained, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, catching the faint glow of passing streetlights. It wasn't the detached observation I usually practiced. This was something far more visceral, a quiet ache in my own chest. Once we arrived at her apartment building, I parked and turned off the engine. The quiet darkness of the interior enveloped us. Lily made a feeble attempt to open the door, her hand unsteady. I moved swiftly, stepping out and around to her side, opening the door for her. I offered her my arm, and she leaned heavily against me, her weight surprisingly light, her breath warm against my ear as I guided her inside, through the quiet lobby and up to her floor. Her apartment was dimly lit, a soft lamp casting long shadows across a neatly arranged living room. I gently helped her to the sofa, a deep, comfortable piece of furniture, and she sank into it with another soft sigh. Her eyes fluttered closed for a moment. I went to the small kitchen, found a glass, and filled it with water, bringing it back to her. "Here," I whispered, holding it out. She took a small sip, then rested her head back, her eyes still heavy. I noticed her coat, still draped awkwardly. Carefully, I reached out, my fingers brushing against the soft wool, and eased it from her shoulders. For a moment, my hand lingered on her arm, a fleeting, almost imperceptible contact that was purely one of gentle care. I felt the delicate warmth of her skin through her blouse, a tangible connection to her profound vulnerability. "Thank you, Mila," she murmured, her words barely audible, her gratitude a fragile whisper in the quiet room. Her raw, unguarded state left a profound impact on me. As her eyes drifted closed, her breathing evening out into a restless sleep, I knew then that the troubled demeanor I had observed in her on previous rides was not merely a surface melancholy. It was rooted in something much deeper, a profound and consuming pain that had finally, uncontrollably, broken through her carefully constructed facade. I stood there for a long moment, watching her, an inexplicable weight settling in my chest, a newfound understanding of the quiet sorrow she carried. The morning light, pale and hesitant, filtered through Lily's apartment window when I returned. A sense of quiet concern had kept me from leaving her entirely to her own devices. I had spent a restless hour in my cab, parked down the street, before deciding to knock. A soft, almost inaudible tap, a cautious inquiry into the state of the woman who had, overnight, shed her carefully constructed armor. Lily opened the door, her appearance much closer to the elegant woman I knew, though a lingering pallor and a slight puffiness around her deep hazel eyes betrayed the previous night's distress. She wore a simple, dark silk robe, its fabric clinging softly to her frame. A faint flush touched her cheeks as she recognized me, an immediate wave of embarrassment washing over her face. "Mila," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread, her gaze dropping for a moment before meeting mine directly. I'm so sorry about last night. Thank you for everything." Her gratitude was palpable, etched in the earnestness of her eyes. "Don't be sorry," I replied, my voice gentle, stepping into the quiet apartment. The air was still, holding a faint, lingering scent of last night's upheaval. "Are you all right?" She nodded slowly, then gestured towards the sofa where she had slept. "Better now. Just a headache." She paused, her fingers twisting around the belt of her robe. "It's been difficult lately." Her gaze drifted to a stack of legal papers on a nearby coffee table, an unspoken narrative suddenly laid bare. "My husband, we're divorcing." Her voice was barely audible, thick with a fresh wave of sorrow. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken pain. I listened intently, my presence a steady anchor in the room. I didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. Instead, I simply sat beside her on the sofa, offering a quiet, non-judgmental ear as she spoke in hushed tones about the breakdown of her marriage, the profound sense of loss, and the quiet fear she harbored about a future she hadn't anticipated. There were no dramatic pronouncements, just the quiet unraveling of a carefully guarded sorrow. I sensed the immense effort it took for her to articulate these deeply personal details, a vulnerability she had never displayed before. My role as her driver had always been one of detached observation. Now, I found myself drawn into her story, not as a spectator, but as a quiet confidant. Our conversations, initially brief and polite, grew longer, more personal. I started taking her to places that weren't just about utility, a quiet bookstore I knew, a lakeside park where the autumn leaves rustled, or simply a drive through neighborhoods where she pointed out architecture she admired. These were spaces where words could unfold without pressure, where silence was comfortable, not strained. Lily began to emerge from the shadow of her immediate pain, tentatively at first, then with increasing ease. She shared stories of her passion for art, her work at the gallery, her fascination with the way light played on canvas. She spoke of past dreams, of aspirations that had been set aside, and of a dawning, uncertain hope for a different future. I learned about her meticulous nature, her quiet dedication, and the surprisingly dry wit that would occasionally surface, catching me off guard. Through these shared moments, I began to see Lily not just as the elegant, melancholic passenger, but as a woman of profound depth and quiet strength. There was a resilience beneath her sorrow, a delicate tenacity that commanded my admiration. My observations of her shifted, becoming infused with a growing sense of appreciation and a genuine, burgeoning fondness. The initial curiosity had blossomed into a deepening connection, a quiet understanding forged in the crucible of her vulnerability and my steadfast presence. I found myself drawn to the nuances of her spirit, finding comfort in the quiet unfolding of her trust. The morning of Lily's divorce hearing dawned gray and unyielding, much like the somber weight that pressed upon her. I had offered to drive her, a quiet gesture she accepted with a barely perceptible nod. When she emerged from her apartment building, she was dressed simply in dark trousers and a tailored blazer, but her composure was a fragile facade. Her deep hazel eyes, usually so expressive, were now red-rimmed and held a raw, exposed vulnerability. Her hands, usually so steady, clasped and unclasped nervously in her lap as I drove, a silent testament to the apprehension churning within her. The air in the cab was thick with her unspoken turmoil, a heavy cloak of anxiety that I could almost feel. I parked a discreet distance from the courthouse, a stark, imposing building that seemed to absorb the morning light. "I'll be here," I told her, my voice low and steady, a quiet anchor in the storm of her emotions. She offered me a shaky smile, a mere twitch of her lips, before disappearing inside. The waiting felt interminable. Each passing minute stretched into an hour. I watched the courthouse doors, my gaze unwavering, a knot of concern tightening in my stomach. The silence in the cab was different now. It was an anxious, watchful quiet. When she finally reappeared a long time later, she was alone. The fragile facade had crumbled entirely. She stood on the courthouse steps, utterly desolate, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The sight struck a chord deep within me. I immediately got out of the car and walked towards her, my steps measured, my heart aching with her pain. Without a word, I reached her. She looked up, her face tear-streaked, her eyes a pool of misery. I simply offered a soft, comforting embrace, my arms wrapping gently around her as she finally allowed the torrent of pent-up grief to escape. Her body shook against mine, her tears soaking into my jacket. I held her for a long time, a silent promise of unwavering support in the face of her profound sorrow, letting her release the years of pain and disappointment. There was no need for words. My presence was enough. After the storm of tears had subsided into quiet sniffles, I gently guided her back to the cab. Instead of driving straight home, I took her to a quiet park I knew, a place with ancient oak trees and a tranquil pond. We walked slowly, the autumn leaves crunching softly underfoot. "It's over," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And now a new beginning is waiting for you, Lily. It won't be easy, but you're stronger than you know." I spoke of small, achievable steps, of rediscovering passions, of finding joy in unexpected places, guiding her towards a vision of life beyond the divorce. My words were not about forgetting, but about healing and rebuilding. As the days unfolded, a gradual shift occurred. With the heavy weight of the divorce lifted, even if the pain lingered, Lily began to emerge. Our interactions grew lighter, punctuated by genuine laughter that now reached her deep hazel eyes. We still sought out quiet places, but now they were filled with a nascent joy. We visited more art exhibitions, sharing whispered comments and playful teasing about each other's artistic preferences. She started challenging my observations with a mischievous glint to her eyes, and I found myself responding with a lightness I hadn't known I possessed. There was an undeniable ease between us, a growing familiarity that deepened with each shared glance. I noticed her gaze lingering on me, a warmth replacing the old sorrow. It was a subtle, unspoken acknowledgement, a new current running beneath the surface of our friendship. I, too, found my own eyes drawn to her, captivated by the way her features animated when she spoke passionately about art, or the soft, unguarded curve of her smile when she was truly happy. The quiet comfort of her presence had transformed into something more, a nascent anticipation that hummed softly beneath the surface of my days. Chapter 6: The Unspoken Invitation. The city, once a backdrop for transient exchanges, now held pockets of profound significance. Lily and I had fallen into an easy pattern of shared moments. My taxi often sat idle while we explored new art installations at her gallery, or lingered over steaming mugs in quiet coffee shops, the murmur of other conversations fading into the background. We spoke of art, of life's complexities, and of the small, unexpected joys that punctuated our days. Our casual touches, a hand resting momentarily on an arm as we pointed out a detail in a painting, a brush of shoulders as we navigated a crowded street, conveyed a deeper, unspoken intimacy than mere friendship. Lily's laughter, once a rare, soft sound, now bubbled up more freely, her head tilted back, revealing the elegant curve of her throat. I found myself utterly captivated by her newfound expressiveness, the vibrant spark in her deep hazel eyes that replaced the earlier sorrow. She, in turn, seemed to seek my gaze often, a quiet warmth in her eyes whenever our eyes met, as if searching for something she found only there. One crisp autumn evening, after a home-cooked dinner at Lily's apartment, a meal she had prepared with a meticulous care that mirrored her appreciation for beauty, the atmosphere shifted. The soft glow of lamps cast long, gentle shadows across her living room, and the remnants of our meal sat forgotten on the coffee table. We had been talking, our voices low, about a book we had both recently read. A comfortable silence settled between us, thick with anticipation, as we sat side by side on her plush sofa. The air around us felt charged, humming with an unarticulated energy. Lily turned to face me, her deep hazel eyes holding mine, a silent question in their depths that I felt resonate deep within my chest. My breath caught, held suspended in the quiet. I felt a profound warmth spread through me, a yearning I had acknowledged in my quiet moments but had never dared to articulate, a powerful current pulling me towards her. Her gaze was soft, unwavering, a gentle invitation. A delicate flush rose to her cheeks as she leaned in, slowly, her eyes still fixed on mine. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Her fingers, cool and slender, brushed lightly against my arm, a fleeting, tender contact that sent a soft shiver through me. The world seemed to narrow to just the two of us, to the unspoken words hanging in the air, to the burgeoning emotions that had found their undeniable voice. Lily closed the small distance between us, her lips finding mine in a gentle, questioning touch. It was soft, hesitant, yet resolute, a silent affirmation of the path we were now on, a delicate whisper of shared affection. I responded instinctively, my own lips parting slightly, my heart pounding a rhythm of profound, burgeoning affection, a silent echo of the yearning I had felt for weeks. The world outside ceased to exist, replaced by the tender contact, the shared breath, the quiet understanding of a connection blossoming into something entirely new and profound. In that moment, the weight of everything unspoken lifted, replaced by the exquisite lightness of a shared, undeniable feeling. The tender touch of that kiss opened a new chapter, not just for Lily and me, but within my own quiet life. It wasn't a sudden explosion, but a gentle unfolding, a deepening of colors within a canvas already rich with shared history. Our relationship grew with a quiet tenderness and a profound sense of discovery. We explored our feelings through soft conversations held in the hushed intimacy of her apartment or beneath the vast, open sky. Each moment, each shared glance, each lingering touch wove us closer, knitting a bond that felt both ancient and thrillingly new. Through Lily, I discovered the true depth of her artistic passion, a vibrant, almost tangible energy that illuminated her whenever she spoke of brushstrokes and composition. I also saw her surprising resilience, the quiet determination that had carried her through her recent trials. I, the silent observer, found myself learning to voice my burgeoning feelings, hesitantly at first, then with increasing clarity, articulating the profound affection that had taken root in my heart. It was a challenge, navigating the unfamiliar terrain of vulnerability, but the warmth in Lily's eyes encouraged me, her patience a steadying hand. Lily, having emerged from the painful shadows of her past marriage, gradually learned to trust and embrace vulnerability again. She allowed herself to lean on me, not as a replacement for what she had lost, but as a new, unwavering source of support. I witnessed her shedding the last vestiges of her guardedness, finding solace and peace in the security of our growing connection. We learned each other's rhythms, the subtle cues of happiness, comfort, or lingering sadness. Yet, this burgeoning love didn't exist in a vacuum. We became subtly aware of the occasional sideways glance, the unspoken questions that sometimes followed us as we walked hand in hand through a park or shared a quiet meal in a bustling restaurant. These external pressures were a quiet hum in the background, a reminder that our connection, while deeply natural to us, might not be universally understood. But we chose to focus on our shared world, on the strength of our bond, finding solace and unwavering affirmation in each other's presence. These fleeting moments of societal judgment, rather than creating distance, only served to reinforce our commitment to each other, strengthening the quiet resolve that grew between us. Inevitably, there were small disagreements, moments when my reserved nature might clash with Lily's more expressive tendencies, creating brief, minor ripples in our otherwise tranquil understanding. A misconstrued silence, an unvoiced expectation. These were not grand conflicts, but the subtle friction points that naturally arise between two distinct individuals finding their rhythm together. Yet, each time, we found our way back to each other, guided by patient understanding and heartfelt forgiveness. We learned to bridge these small gaps, not by avoiding them, but by communicating with a gentle honesty, strengthening the foundation of our bond with each shared vulnerability and each renewed embrace. Our love, like a quiet river, deepened with every turn, carving a path towards a future we were building, hand in hand, against the backdrop of an ever-changing world. Our love had become a sanctuary, a quiet harbor amidst the ceaseless currents of the city. It was a place where strength was found not in grand pronouncements, but in the soft understanding that passed between us, in the unwavering support we offered each other. I, the once silent observer, had gradually found my voice, a quiet but firm expression of my love for Lily. It wasn't always eloquent, but it was always true, conveyed through gentle gestures, long gazes, and the steady, comforting presence I offered. Lily, in turn, had found a profound sense of peace and belonging that she hadn't known was possible. The shadows of her past had receded, replaced by a radiant light that emanated from within her, a quiet confidence that settled deep in her hazel eyes. She still had moments of quiet introspection, but now they were tinged with hope, not sorrow. One late afternoon, we drove out of the city, leaving behind the familiar urban hum for the vast, expansive quiet of the coast. The ocean stretched before us, a restless, shimmering expanse of gray and silver under a sky that hinted at approaching dusk. We walked along the beach, the relentless rhythm of the waves a soothing counterpoint to our thoughts. The salty air whipped around us, tugging at strands of Lily's dark hair as she walked beside me. Her hand found mine, her fingers intertwining naturally, a silent testament to our enduring bond. We spoke of dreams, not grand, sweeping ambitions, but small, precious plans for the future. A weekend trip to a coastal town we'd seen in an art book, a quiet evening spent cooking a new recipe, the simple, profound joy of being together, building a life, brick by quiet brick. Lily rested her head against my shoulder as we sat on a driftwood log, her presence a deep comfort that I now cherished more than I ever thought possible. I felt the soft curve of her head, the gentle weight of her trust. My arm, without conscious thought, encircled her, a gentle, unwavering gesture of support and affection, a silent promise whispered by my touch. The warmth of her against me was a tangible manifestation of the peace she had found, and the quiet joy I now knew. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of soft orange and rose, casting long shadows across the sand. Our journey was far from over. The path ahead was undoubtedly filled with unwritten pages, with challenges and discoveries yet to unfold. But as the last sliver of sunlight touched the horizon, casting a golden glow over the endless ocean, I knew we faced it together. Our love, a quiet, steady flame, burned bright against the vastness of the future, a testament to healing and the unexpected connections that transform lives. Our hands remained clasped, our gaze fixed on the open horizon, ready for whatever came next, our bond an unwavering anchor in the vast, beautiful uncertainty of our shared tomorrow. My life, once a well-worn road of routine and detached observation, had transformed into a tapestry woven with shared threads. The taxi still rolled through the city streets, a familiar hum beneath me, but my inner world pulsed with a different rhythm. Lily had brought a vibrancy to my existence, gently coaxing me from the quiet solitude I had unknowingly built around myself. I found myself more present, more open, less a witness and more a participant in the intricate dance of life. Lily continued to blossom, shedding the last vestiges of the sadness that had once clouded her beautiful eyes. Her passion for art, once a quiet solace, now radiated outwards, infusing her days with purpose and joy. I often found her sketching, lost in the delicate lines and shading, her dark hair falling softly around her face as she concentrated. There was a peace about her now, a settled calm that warmed me from the inside out, a testament to her profound healing. She spoke with a newfound lightness about her work at the gallery, about emerging artists and the stories their pieces told. Her dreams, once fragile whispers, now felt like tangible plans, imbued with the strength of her renewed spirit. One particular evening, the city lights blurred outside Lily's apartment window, softened by a light rain. We were in our usual comfortable silence, a quiet understanding that had grown deeper than any spoken word. Lily was curled on the plush sofa, engrossed in a large art history book, her brow furrowed in concentration. The soft lamplight illuminated the graceful curve of her neck and the delicate fingers tracing lines on the page. I sat in a nearby armchair, a book resting unread in my lap, my gaze drawn to her. I watched her, a quiet contentment settling over me. Her presence filled the room, not with noise, but with a gentle energy, a profound sense of home. She looked up then as if sensing my gaze, and her lips curved into a soft, knowing smile. There was no need for words, no elaborate declarations. The unspoken acknowledgement passed between us, a current of warmth and affection. She closed her book, placing it carefully beside her. "What are you thinking about?" she murmured, her voice soft, inviting. "Just how far we've come," I replied, my voice a quiet reflection of the evening. "And how much I cherish these moments." She shifted, moving closer to me, her hand reaching out to gently rest on mine, a touch that conveyed volumes. The casualness of the gesture, the familiar comfort of her touch, spoke of the quiet strength we had built together. There was an unspoken awareness of the world outside, of the subtle judgments that might exist, but within the walls of this apartment, within the sanctuary of our connection, those whispers faded into insignificance. Our love was a testament to courage, to vulnerability, to the profound healing that can be found in unexpected connections. As the rain continued its gentle patter against the window, we sat there, connected in a silence that spoke more eloquently than any dialogue. The path ahead was still unfolding, a vast, beautiful canvas yet to be painted, filled with unwritten moments and unspoken promises. But we faced it together, two souls intertwined, navigating the open horizon with a quiet strength, a love that continued to deepen and grow with each passing day, a steady, unwavering light in the heart of the city.